Right now, as you're watching this, there's a version of you that exists somewhere in the future. Not in some mystical dimension or parallel universe, but in the very real timeline of your own life. And that future version of yourself has been trying to get your attention for longer than you realize. They've been dropping breadcrumbs, sending signals, creating moments of clarity that you've probably dismissed as coincidence or wishful thinking. But here's what's wild about this moment, about you being here right now. Your future self isn't just hoping you'll stumble across this message. They orchestrated it. They've been pulling strings behind the scenes of your consciousness, creating the exact circumstances that would lead you to this precise point in time where you're finally ready to receive what they've been desperately trying to tell you. You know that feeling you get sometimes, usually in quiet moments when you're not distracted by your phone or your to-do list or other people's demands on your attention. That subtle but persistent sense that you're meant for something different than what you're currently living. That's not your imagination running wild. That's not some romanticized fantasy about a better life. That's your future self reaching back through time, trying to remind you of who you really are, underneath all the layers of compromise and settling and playing it safe. Most people ignore these moments. They brush them off as daydreaming or unrealistic expectations. They convince themselves that feeling dissatisfied with their current reality is somehow ungrateful or selfish. They've been conditioned to believe that wanting more, wanting different, wanting better is a character flaw rather than a soul calling.
But you're not most people. If you were, you wouldn't be here right now, feeling that familiar stirring in your chest as these words land in places you forgot existed. Your future self has been watching you make decisions based on fear instead of vision. They've seen you choose comfort over growth, security over possibility, other people's approval over your own inner knowing. And they're not judging you for it. They understand why you made those choices. They remember the circumstances, the pressures, the voices telling you to be practical, to be realistic, to stop chasing impossible dreams. But they also know something you're beginning to suspect. Those dreams weren't impossible. They were just inconvenient for the version of yourself that was afraid of what it might cost to pursue them. The version that was terrified of disappointing people, of failing publicly, of discovering you weren't as capable as you hoped. So you made the safe choices, the sensible choices, the choices that kept you small enough to avoid criticism and comfortable enough to avoid real risk. And for a while, that worked. You built a life that looked reasonable from the outside. You checked the boxes that society told you mattered. You followed the script that promised security and acceptance and a predictable path to a predictable happiness. But somewhere along the way, you started noticing the gap between what your life looked like and what it felt like. The space between who you appeared to be and who you knew you could become. That gap is where your future self lives. They exist in the space between your current reality and your untapped potential. They're not some perfected version of you that has everything figured out. They're simply the version that stopped making decisions based on what might go wrong and started making them based on what might go right. The version that chose expansion over contraction, possibility over certainty, growth over stagnation.
Here's what your future self wants you to understand about the path you're on right now. Every single experience you've had, every setback, every moment of doubt, every time you felt like you were falling behind or making the wrong choices, all of it was necessary preparation. Not punishment, not proof of your inadequacy, but preparation. You've been developing muscles you didn't even know you were building. Resilience muscles, adaptation muscles, the kind of inner strength that only comes from navigating uncertainty without a guarantee of how things will turn out. Your future self can see the pattern that you can't see yet, how every closed door led you to an open window, how every rejection redirected you towards something better, aligned with who you're becoming, how every moment of confusion was actually clarity, trying to break through the noise of what you thought you were supposed to want. They want you to know that the skills you've been developing in your current situation, even if it feels completely wrong for you, are exactly the skills you'll need for what's coming next. The patience you've learned dealing with difficult people will serve you when you're building something that matters. The creativity you've had to summon to solve problems with limited resources will become your superpower when you finally have the freedom to create without constraints. But here's where it gets really interesting. Your future self isn't just passively waiting for you to figure things out. They're actively working to create synchronicities, opportunities, connections that will help bridge the gap between where you are and where you're meant to be. Those random conversations that spark new ideas, those books that somehow find their way into your hands at exactly the right moment, those chance encounters that feel like more than coincidence. Your future self is behind all of it. They understand something about time that your current perspective can't fully grasp yet. That the future isn't some distant destination you're slowly walking toward. It's a living reality that's already calling the shots in your present moment. Every intuitive hit you get, every sudden knowing that appears without logical explanation, every moment when you feel inexplicably drawn towards something you can't quite articulate, that's your future communicating with your present. The reason this feels different than other motivational content you might have consumed is because this isn't about pumping yourself up or forcing positive thinking or pretending everything is fine when it's not. This is about recognition. Recognition of a conversation that's already been happening beneath the surface of your conscious awareness. A conversation between who you are now and who you're becoming. Your future self has been patiently waiting for you to develop enough self-trust to hear their guidance without immediately doubting it. They've watched you give your power away to experts and authorities and well-meaning friends who couldn't possibly know what's right for your unique path. They've seen you second-guess your instincts and override your inner wisdom in favor of what seemed more logical or acceptable to others. But something has shifted recently. You've started questioning whether the safe path is actually safe, if it's slowly erasing who you really are. You've begun to wonder if the practical choice is actually practical, if it leaves you feeling empty and disconnected from your own life. You've started entertaining the possibility that maybe, just maybe, there's a way to honor both your need for security and your longing for something more meaningful. That shift, that questioning, that willingness to consider that maybe you've been playing smaller than necessary That's your future self finally getting through to you. They've been broadcasting on a frequency that you're only now learning to tune into, and the signal is getting stronger because you're becoming ready to receive it without immediately shutting it down with logic or fear or the voices of everyone who told you to be more realistic. Your future self remembers what it felt like to live in constant tension between who they were being and who they knew they could become. They remember the exhaustion of maintaining a persona that felt increasingly foreign. They remember the quiet desperation of going through the motions while feeling like they were watching their own life from the outside, like an actor playing a role they never auditioned for. But they also remember the exact moment when everything began to change. Not because external circumstances suddenly aligned perfectly, but because they finally stopped waiting for permission to be themselves. They stopped asking if they were qualified enough, prepared enough, worthy enough to want what they wanted. They realized that the very fact they could envision something different meant they were already equipped to move toward it. Here's what they discovered that changed everything. The gap between your current reality and your desired reality isn't as vast as it appears. It's not separated by years of preparation or massive life overhauls or dramatic transformations. It's separated by a series of small decisions that align your daily actions with your deeper truth instead of your surface fears. Your future self didn't become who they are through one heroic leap. They became who they are through 1,000 tiny acts of courage, saying no to opportunities that drained their energy, even when those opportunities looked impressive to others, saying yes to possibilities that excited them, even when they couldn't explain why, choosing conversations that expanded their thinking over conversations that kept them comfortable, investing time in developing skills that mattered to them rather than skills that mattered to their resume. They want you to understand that transformation isn't about becoming someone completely different. It's about finally allowing yourself to be who you've always been, underneath the adaptations and accommodations and survival strategies you developed to fit into spaces that were never meant for you. It's about remembering the dreams you had before you learned to dream smaller. It's about reconnecting with the version of yourself that existed before you started editing your personality to match other people's comfort levels. The reason you feel restless lately isn't because something is wrong with your life. It's because something is right with your instincts. That restlessness is your internal navigation system recalibrating. It's your soul's way of saying that you've outgrown the container you're currently living in, and it's time to expand into something that actually fits who you're becoming. Your future self has been trying to show you that the things you've been afraid of losing if you change course aren't actually serving you anyway. The relationships that can't survive your growth weren't based on who you really are. The security that depends on you staying small isn't actually secure. The approval that requires you to hide parts of yourself isn't worth having. They've been attempting to communicate through your dissatisfaction, your boredom, your increasing inability to pretend that mediocrity is acceptable. That growing intolerance for situations that insult your intelligence or waste your potential isn't you becoming difficult or demanding. It's you finally developing standards that match your worth instead of standards that match your fears. But here's the part that might surprise you. Your future self isn't trying to rush you towards some predetermined destination. They're not holding a blueprint of exactly how your life should unfold, or judging you for not being further along. They understand that the journey of becoming who you're meant to be isn't linear.
It requires periods of exploration, experimentation, even apparent setbacks that are actually course corrections. What they're really trying to tell you is that you already have everything you need to take the next right step. Not the perfect step, not the step that guarantees specific outcomes, just the next right step based on what you know to be true about yourself right now.
They want you to trust that clarity comes through movement, not before it. That you don't have to see the entire staircase to take the first step. The wisdom you've been seeking outside yourself, in books and courses and other people's success stories, it's already inside you. It's been there all along, waiting for you to quiet down enough to hear it. Your future self has access to that wisdom because they finally learned to listen to it instead of dismissing it as unrealistic or impractical or too good to be true. They remember what it felt like to constantly second-guess their instincts, to seek validation from sources that couldn't possibly understand their unique path. They remember the exhaustion of trying to force strategies that worked for others to work for them, even when everything inside them was saying, "This isn't the way." They remember thinking they needed more information, more preparation, more certainty, before they could trust themselves to make important decisions. So if something inside you has been stirring as these words landed, if there's a part of you that's been nodding along in recognition, then you already know what your future self has been trying to tell you. You're not broken. You're not behind. You're not missing some crucial piece of information that everyone else seems to have. You're exactly where you need to be to finally hear what they've been patiently broadcasting all along. The conversation between your current self and your future self doesn't end here. It's just beginning. Because now that you know they've been trying to reach you, now that you understand those moments of restlessness and dissatisfaction are actually guidance in disguise, you can start listening more intentionally. You can start trusting those subtle nudges towards something different, something more aligned, something that feels like home in a way your current situation never quite has. Your future self isn't asking you to quit your job tomorrow or burn down your entire life. They're simply asking you to start making decisions from a place of expansion rather than contraction. To choose growth over comfort in small ways that add up to massive transformation over time. To finally give yourself permission to want what you want without needing to justify it to people who aren't living your life. The signal is getting stronger. The gap is getting smaller. And the version of yourself that's been waiting patiently for you to remember who you really are, they're not going anywhere. They'll keep sending signs, creating synchronicities, opening doors until you finally walk through one. Because they know something you're just beginning to understand. You were never meant to live a life that felt like settling. You were meant to live a life that felt like coming alive. The question isn't whether you're ready. The question is whether you're finally willing to listen.